A little while ago, I made a video talking about my thoughts on Dusk's first module, which I thought was fairly disappointing, especially on her level 2 and level 3 module upgrades. And the video was a lot more popular than I thought it would be. So, about a week and a half later, after I made that video, Hypergriff announced the second module for Dusk. Coincidence? Well, I'm sure it is, but that doesn't make it less ironic. So, as a quick reminder before we get to Dusk's second module, here's a short recap of her first module, the Splashcaster X, as well as the fan-made ideas that I had for what I was looking for in a good Dusk module. And then we'll see how the second module kind of takes some ideas from that. So the first module gives her 1 tile of extra range, gives her max HP, which is probably like the main thing that I kind of had a problem with, is that instead of attack speed or something, they went with max HP. And more specifically, the level 2 and level 3 just gave her more stacks of her sublimity buff, which, considering that many of the stages in Arknights have around that 30 to 40 enemy mark, and also the stacks reset whenever she's defeated or retreated, I didn't think that that was a very good way of improving Dusk's first talent. So it seems like for the modules that one module type will improve one of the talents, and then the other module will focus on the other talent. So we'll get into that when we look at Dusk's second module. So overall, pretty much the highlight of this module is the extra tile of range. Makes her skill 1 actually really good. And before getting it myself with the Guide Ahead event, I underrated how useful that extra tile of range is. It definitely makes Dusk much better to use when using her skill 1, but at the same time, though, it's not a lot compared to her competition, and that was kind of my main issue with Dusk's module, is that a lot of her competition in the AoE damage got really good modules, and then Dusk basically just gets that extra tile of range, which operators like Passenger already had by default, or Aya, and then extra stacks of the sublimity buff. So when I was making the fan-made modules, this is basically what I was looking for in a good Dusk module. I wanted attack speed of some kind, because in my opinion that was one of the bigger issues that I had with Dusk, or Splashcasters in general really, is that they have that really slow 2.9 seconds attack interval, and I really don't like that. And the biggest thing for Dusk was that her first module did absolutely nothing with freelings, so I wanted her to be able to summon freelings outside of using her skill 3. So that is basically the new talent for each of these, is related to summoning a freeling with a set interval between summoning them with the next attack. So basically making it so that the finishing touch talent can be used every 30 seconds, or in the case of my second module idea, every 10 seconds, but they're weaker for those 10 each rotation of that, and give SP back to Dusk. So, how is Dusk's second module? Well, it's better than her first one, which unfortunately is not saying a whole lot, because I really didn't like her first module all that much. Again, mostly just because of her competition got so much better, whereas Dusk didn't really get too much. So without further ado, let's look at Dusk's second module. So, being the SplashCaster-Y variant of the modules, this is the type that Mastima got. So, you have the flat attack, of course, but it also has the attack speed and minus DP cost. All great buffs to Splashcasters, and in my opinion, just for my playstyle and how I view Splashcasters, I personally would take the attack speed and DP reduction over the extra tile of range and the extra Subliminity stacks by itself without any talent improvement. But of course I know that that would be subjective, so even though the extra tile of range is nice for her skill 1, yes, I would rather have the attack speed and the minus DP costs. But what is really interesting is when we look at how Hypergriff improved her finishing touch talent. So, like I said before, with the other module ideas that I had for fan-made ones, that I wanted Dusk to have the ability to summon Freelings outside of her skill 3, to give her some versatility, kind of like a Splashcaster version of Beanstalk or Black Knight. But what they did was very interesting. So, as you can see here, the first attack after deployment will summon 2 Freelings instead of 1 at the target location, and the adjacent 4 tiles. So basically, the second Freeling will deploy anywhere that there's a deployable tile around the first one. And all Freelings have increased stats, so I put that on there as extra text, and restores 1 SP every 2.5 seconds. That is very interesting, because it makes it so that Dusk can have her own personal SP battery for 25 seconds. And also, the Freelings get a lot of extra HP, but not a lot of attack or defense. And in the first module, fan-made module that I made, admittingly, the extra, having the Freelings get an extra 100 attack and 100 defense was probably a bit much. I think both of those fan-made modules that I made would have made Dusk too powerful when I look back on it. So I think the extra Freeling stats that Hypergriff did made it so that the Freelings were more durable, but also without making them a bit too strong. So I like that. But the thing is that with the Freelings giving extra SP, this module really heavily caters to Dusk's skill 3. Because, of course, you can't resummon the Freelings unless she's using her skill 3. Which isn't really something that I like all that much. I would have much rather had a more versatile module setup, but I guess they wanted the first module with the extra tile of range and the Subliminity stacks to be like the skill 1 and skill 2 module, and then this one be the skill 3 module. And then when we get into the level 3, the SP gain is every 1.5 seconds instead of 2.5. And this stacks with every single Freeling that is on the stage. So since she summons 2 of them, she's getting 2 SP every 1.5 seconds. And also much further increased stats. And then the exact same stats as Mastima for the flat attack, attack speed, and the DP costs. So, overall, a very interesting take on it. And I think the only thing that really sticks out to me that is really disappointing is the flat attack bonus is only plus 82. So that is something that I talked about in the first video, that I really don't understand how splash casters, when they have been underpowered for a while and compared to their competition, and they're getting only plus 80 attack for the 6 stars, doesn't really make a lot of sense to me when Chen can get, guard Chen can get plus 80, passenger can get plus 90 or plus 100, and so on. So if the Splashcasters got around plus 100 or plus 110 or something, that would have helped quite a bit. So overall, my thoughts on this module is that it is definitely not something I would have expected, that to have that unique interaction with the Freelings. So overall, with this being this for sure is the absolute best module that if you use Dusk skill 3, this is probably the best module that you could have asked for, because the Freelings get increased stats, gain extra attack speed to refresh the Freelings slightly faster, and then she gains SP back for every Freeling that's on the stage. So here is a comment thread that when I was informed of Dusk's second module, thank you for the comments, by the way, that let me know about that, by Farid Ramirez, saying that let me know about the new module, and he expressed that he thought it was pretty bad. And from my first impressions of it, I was pretty pessimistic as well. So let me explain my thoughts on that. So the Patriot asks Farid why he didn't like the second module. So, getting into it, this is my response to that. From my perspective, the second module is better than Dusk's first module, simply because I would easily trade her conditional 12% additional attack and range for extra attack speed. As for the talent increases, however, it makes the second module easily Dusk's ultimate skill 3 stalling module. But the problem is that the question has to be asked, why would I need to stall enemies if they are dead? Comparing Dusk to Aya's skill 3, that basically eliminates normal enemies with ease, also passenger skill 3, and so on. So what we have left is boss stalling. The reason why I rarely use Dusk skill 3 is that more and more bosses simply cannot be blocked, so it's useless in those situations. So I'm talking about Anduin, who just came out for us in Global. Phantom, you can only block him for a limited time. Dagenbrecher, also in that case. So it just seems like more and more bosses are coming out that just simply cannot be blocked whatsoever. But even in those situations where Dusk is very useful, I am much more likely to come up with a different strategy than rely on Dusk's Freelings, like using a fast redeploy or additional defender operators to stall instead and use a better DPS in place of Dusk, or simply Dusk using her skill 1 or skill 2. So while this module sounds pretty good in making Dusk stand out more with a special niche, I highly doubt that it will be enough. It does sound really useful in IS2 and IS3, so there is that at least. So in integrated strategies, Dusk skill 3 is really good from my experience. These are my thoughts, Patriot. Definitely more special than Dusk's first module, and I hope it makes her more useful, but it doesn't stand out enough for me personally unless the attack and attack speed bonuses are fairly high. So, unpacking this, I want to be clear on a few things. So, well, what I said I still agree with, I did not see any showcases of this module being used yet, and like I said before, I was fairly pessimistic about how good the module will be. And one thing that I really didn't think about was that the extra SP at the start, it sounds like it's completely useless for her skill 1 and skill 2 at face value, because I was thinking, oh, well, you have to use skill 3 in order to gain much benefit from it, in order to refresh the freelings and everything. But when I thought about it more, the extra SP really helps Dusk gain her skill 2 really quickly, or multiple charges of her skill 1. So ironically, the module that doesn't give her extra stacks, it makes it easier for her to get those stacks earlier, because she's able to use those skills sooner. So, overall, my thoughts on it is that Dusk's second module kind of makes me think of Mastima's module, where it did improve her most unique aspect by a lot. For an example, Dusk skill 3, before this module, it's kind of hard to use that skill more than once or twice per stage, because it lasts for 60 seconds and it has that huge 100 SP cost, even at M3. So with this, she's able to use it more often, and I think it makes it so, like, if you're facing really tough enemies that can be blocked, Dusk is going to be a lot more appealing now. But from a meta perspective, if you aren't using Dusk now, I really don't think that the bonuses from this module will make her appealing enough to be more useful to you. Like, if you play the game often using those meta operators in order to get through those hard stages, and even for myself with the wide cast of operators that I have, this module isn't going to be enough for me to think about using Dusk on the really hard stages. So, with all of that being said, Dusk's second module, is actually one of the best in the entire game. Do you know why that is? Because it's fun. So for me, Dusk skill 3 is one of the most fun skills to use in Arknights. It's one of those skills that I don't really use at all on a very difficult stage, but it's one of those things that, like in my very first stream, I tried to use Dusk skill 3 with Rose Mantis in order to defeat the Knight duo. And almost being able to pull that off, and if I had this module I would have been able to, was honestly some of the most fun that I've ever had in Arknights, is doing those silly strategies. And it's one of the things that I really love about Arknights is that, yeah, using Dusk in this situation is probably not the best idea, arguably, but when it works, or if it works, it is incredible. And in integrated strategies, I use Dusk quite frequently because using her skill 3 when you have a limited cast of operators is actually really good. And so having a module that focuses on the most fun aspects of Dusk's character is amazing to me. So again, I don't think it'll be enough to make it so that if you aren't using Dusk already to be able to use her, or I shouldn't say be able to be appealing enough to use her on a hard stage, but it'll make her a lot more fun to use. And I think with everything that I've said in this video and in the previous video, is that that's pretty much all that I could have asked for in some of these modules. I don't want them to be super broken, but having them be more fun, what more could I ask for? And so, all in all, well, yeah, this module might not be amazing, game-breaking. It's definitely what I could have asked for, and is better than my ideas. So, thank you, Hypergriff, for making Dusk more fun with this module, and with the first module being unimpressive, just stat increases that definitely didn't really play into that. So, thumbs up for this one. And hopefully you will enjoy using your Dusk more frequently with this module as well. Thanks for coming with me on this journey.